Hello everyone, welcome to Cafe IO. Cafe IO में आपका स्वागत है. This is Akash, and today we are going to be talking about a local development workflow using Visual Studio Code and Docker. I'll give a walkthrough of a very simple static application which is written in JavaScript, and I will try to Dockerize that app, run that using Docker from VS Code, and also show how to bring in command line to execute some Docker commands, and also bring in Docker Desktop, which is an additional tool that can really help and simplify the overall workflow. So let's get started. So what I've done is I have downloaded a welcome to Docker app from Git, and this is a very straightforward app. If you go and check out the source code for it, there's hardly anything in there in the app.js. You can see there's a link to Twitter, and then there's a link to LinkedIn, and then there's a Reddit link. So it's pretty much a very static page, and that's what it shows. But the idea is to show the Dockerization part to it. So let's get on to it. In order to get Docker up and running, you need an extension in Visual Studio called Docker, as the name should be. And this is an extension which you need to install. It's certified by Microsoft. It's probably the most used after extension, from the name that Docker comes up. There's other ones which are related to Docker, but this is really the one that you need. What it does is it gives you an interface to Docker very similar to any other interface like for API or Azure that you have. So here in the left hand side you will be able to see, let's open the Docker file for instance. And for people who are not familiar, a Docker file is a script. The fundamental idea with Docker file is that you take all the necessary stuff, and by stuff I imply the images, the libraries, the files, the static stuff, everything. You package it neatly and make a deployable unit which is called a container or a container image. When you run that, it typically runs as an isolated environment within a virtual machine or your local machine or cloud, and that's how you interact with. So that's a super high level view of Docker. Now let's go to the extension itself, and on the left hand side you will be able to see containers, and you can refresh it here. You will be able to see images, and you'll be able to see registries. Registry is pretty much like an app store or play store for Docker images, and you can save your own images in there. I have connected my IDE to Docker Hub. Let's move on to the second piece of the tech, which is the Docker Desktop tool, and this is something which I really like. And Docker Desktop fundamentally has evolved brilliantly over the years, and it now does pretty much everything that you need to do to interact with a Docker environment. So it has container images, but it also shows you volumes and dev environments. A video coming up about this, stay tuned. Shows the Docker Scout, which is an advanced image analysis tool using Docker Scout, and it will give you in-depth insights which we'll talk about in future videos. And then you can also add extensions. For example, I have an extension installed which shows how much disk space is utilized, blah blah blah, how much cache is there, etc., how much reclaim. So when building, Docker images tend to leave a little bit of cache behind, which can be reclaimed, which is what this is showing. So let's get back to it. So now my Docker image is pretty straightforward. Let's start with the first line, which says start your image with the node base image. So I'm using a node which is based on the Alpine Linux. You set the work directory, which should be the main app directory. You copy everything inside, and then you copy the local directories to the inside the local directory of your Docker image. So what's basically happening in these two steps is, or rather these three steps is, you are setting the current directory as a main directory. You are copying everything in there, and then what you're doing is you're moving everything from your local machine to inside the Docker container. Remember I said it's an isolated unit. That's what you're doing. And then after that, you're typically running the node packages installation or Python installation, whatever you are exposing a port on which this is supposed to run, and then you're using a start command. Now this is pretty straightforward. And when you build a Docker image, and I have just pre-built this few minutes back, this is how you will see. So what happens is when you say docker build -t welcome to docker dot, the dot really takes up all the files and folders and considers them. So if you see the number of steps, this is pretty much what you have. So I have about 6 steps inside, which is, let's go back and see 1 2 3 4 5 6, right? So total 6 steps inside, and that's what you will see here: 1 of 6, 2 of 6, 3 of 6, etc. And it basically does everything installation, and shows you basically what you need to do, etc, etc. After this, once this is done, what will happen is, in either of the places, you can either go to the containers and you will see, sorry, you should go to images and you will see a welcome to docker image come up. You can change the name. Alternatively, you can also go to images inside the docker desktop and see the image that you have here. Now, how do we run it? You can click on this and click run, and when you click run, you get some optional settings. Should put in a port number, something like, let's just say 8089. And what will happen is the inside port 3000 will be bound to the outside port 8089. And when I press run, it's going to start accepting some connections. And yeah, that's pretty much what we need to do. So it's still, I think it's just about to start. Let's go to containers. Why is it not running? Okay, let's go and check if it's running. No, I don't think it is running right now. Let's just quickly check what has happened. Did I make a mistake? Yes. Oh no, sorry, I think I was supposed to put in the port number here and I accidentally entered it in the container name. So that was the mistake that I made, and now this should be running. Let's go and see. Yep. So now, as you see on my port 8089, you have the container running, which is just a hyperlink, which is something that I showed you, right? So this just is a static image, but fundamentally you can do anything. A couple of additional things which I want to talk about. As soon as you do this, right, you will also see a very seamless integration into the Docker extension on the left hand side in your IDE. So you can also use it to monitor from here. So if you see what my error was, I entered 8089 here. You can clearly see the name here. You can actually take a couple of actions from here. You can label it, you can change certain settings, you can, I think, remove it, and it will be removed from the running containers, and you can see the same thing in here as well. So now let's go and take a look at a couple of more insightful stuff. So this is where the extension will stop, but what I really wanted to get forward to is looking at this. If you see this, right, you can see all the logs here. If you just do a couple of hits, you will be able to see all of that coming here and getting generated in real time. You have tons of more information. For example, if you go to inspect, you can see what's happening here. You can check the platform, which is Linux. You can see the commands. You can see the port bindings, like I entered 8089. You can see the runtime, volumes, labels, every information about the data is visible here. You can check the binds, exec files, etc, etc, if you want to just understand what's happening here. You can also look at the stats, which is basically seeing how much CPU is being utilized, how much memory is being utilized, network and disk uses, which is really useful for monitoring running containers. And this is something which I like about Docker Desktop. It's a very recent feature and kind of handy too. I would, let's probably check. Yep, all right, we can go I don't have Scout installed, so I'll probably do a video about it in my next session. You can also see here, right, the port binding is very clearly visible and stuff like that. As soon as you make changes, you can obviously stop it from either of the places. You can go here, stop, or restart, and as you do that, it will automatically go and stop here. And as you make changes to your code, you can probably just rebuild your image, and you will have a new image with the changes accepted into it. So that's pretty much it, guys. I wanted to do a quick short introductory and still detailed video about Docker and Visual Studio Code. Hope you have liked it. Do a thumbs up, subscribe. Thank you. Bye bye.